Before the sun rises and after the sun sets, the growers of our food are busy planting, nurturing, harvesting, working hard to feed the world. These heroes are always on call. They never give up, forever committed to doing more for people and the planet. Farmers are here for you, and we are here for farmers. Growing food has been a way of life for centuries, but the way we grow has evolved. We are leading the evolution of farming, using science to capture the data stored in soil, plants, rain, and air. Simplifying complex intelligence and turning it into actionable insights with Farm Command, our powerful digital platform. We're giving farmers an edge with our innovative suite of digital tools, precision hardware, unmatched services, and boots-on-the-ground support. Empowering farmers all over the world to make better decisions for their farm, for the community, and for the environment. Our highly trained data scientists collect and analyze soil from different areas of the field to prescribe an efficient fertilizer application. Our weather stations that our professionals install and calibrate provide the most accurate weather data tailored to farmers' fields. Our robust suite of satellite imagery provides a detailed view of crop health even before problems arise. Brand-agnostic telematics devices installed in equipment ensure seamless data collection from anywhere, anytime. We are digitizing the farm and creating a digital ecosystem that not only connects farmers to their fields, but to key stakeholders and trusted advisors. So while yesterday's farmer had to make their best guess, today's farmer knows how to grow more, faster, and more sustainably than ever. Together, we can support the heroes that feed the world. Our commitment and dedication to innovation, science, and technology is transforming farming for the benefit of us all. Sustainable growing, a healthier planet, more food for the world. And this is only the beginning.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for yet another Farmer's Edge YouTube live session. My name is Jimmy Shand, and I'll be your host today. Our topic of discussion for today is the difference between regular fungicide and VR fungicide. Now, before I introduce our guest, I'd like to just remind you that if you have any questions throughout this chat today, please enter them into the chat box. Now, our guest today is George Bilinsky. He's one of our senior territory sales agronomists and a 15-year veteran here at Farmer's Edge. George, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk fungicide and VR fungicide. So let's just kick it off right into the questions. So what tips can you explain that would help growers utilize or better utilize fungicides?
Okay, so obviously fungicide season's coming up here right away, and just want to go over some tips on some things that customers and farmers can help with their fungicide applications. The biggest one I would say right now is to be scouting ahead of time. Seeing if there's stuff along the way that would point you that there's going to be a potential disease threat in the field. Whether that be mushrooms when it comes to sclerotinia, whether, looking at typical forecasts that are coming up to you and precipitation and humidity events that we've had up into along the way, that would point that the disease pressure would be higher. We do have disease modeling within Farm Command as well too, that would help steer customers to making a decision into that as well. So that's one is scouting early, and just making sure that you take care of that threat before it comes along. The number two, once we're into the fungicides kind of side of things, is make sure to be checking labels of every single product. Rain fastness when it comes to, what does that particular fungicide like when you're applying that fungicide? Is there a pretty wide rain fastness? Does it actually benefit from having to be sprayed closer to a dew event in the springtime and dispersing that fungicide and getting more coverage on the leaf, whether it be a systemic and pulls through the plant, or whether that's a coverage, totally a coverage fungicide, and it has to use a lot of water along the way. Another one, just alternating modes of action when it comes to fungicides. There's different modes of action for fungicides, and trying to alternate those just for the sake of not overusing fungicides and each mode. So those fungicides are there for us to use in the future. Timing when it comes to the fungicide application, I believe, is huge. Making sure that you're always trying to be ahead on the application. Most times fungicides are always sprayed and get the best bang on the earlier side rather than the later side. Obviously, there's weather events that come up and everything else along the way, but being ahead of the curve is always better. And obviously, whether that would be spraying depending on the timing of the day, whether they're the heat of the day or early mornings, there's always pluses and minuses to both of those. But when you got a lot of acres to cover, sometimes you just have no choice and try to make the best out of a situation. Spray pressures, obviously coverage is the key there, and making sure that you have a range on your nozzles. If you're speeding up or slowing down, going through wet spots and slowing the sprayer down, and making sure that you have a range of nozzle pressure, that can fit that bill. With that, nozzle types, that the range of pressure obviously there, and also a coverage. There's piles of different nozzles out there, so making sure that fits the bill. Sometimes in the application of even dual nozzle, and what angle pressure or what angle to be sprayed at as well too. Another big one is water pressure or water volumes. Obviously follow the label rates and try to keep water up. If there's any application that's the most critical when it comes to water volumes, it's fungicides. Obviously a lot more water usage than the typical herbicide application. So the more water, always the better. Proper rates. I think this is another key there too, that proper rates, and going off of labeled rates. There's been a pile of research done on which labeled rate is the best to attack the fungicide or the problem that you're encountering. There's usually multiple rates, and whatever one seems to fit your bill or budget is what you should be shooting for. Another one is on the label is potentially post-harvest intervals and re-entry intervals after the fungicide has been sprayed. Most of them are somewhat benign. They're not like an insecticide, but please be checking on the label for that. Last one is application speeds, and that one would go towards the I guess the conditions in the field. Dust behind tends to be kicked up by the wheels and can potentially hurt the application rate or reduce the coverage that goes along with it. So, knowing your conditions, obviously there's not a whole bunch we can do about it, but if dust is a huge factor, then you may need to be slowing down to get the best bang out of the fungicide that you're applying.
Okay, so in your area, what would be the main crops that would utilize fungicide? Is there like a timing difference between the crops?
Yeah. I guess I should have introduced myself more. So I'm based out of Winnipeg. My territory is solely Manitoba. So the fungicide or the crops that are going to be potentially getting the most fungicides would be canola, obviously, cereals, wheat, oats, barley. To a lesser extent, would be potentially corn or flax or soy. On fungicide on canola, especially when it comes to sclerotinia, we're obviously looking at about that 30%. Bloom stage is potentially the best. There is a wider window on that depending on which product. Some products are better than others, but again, the earlier the application is always the best, and hitting that early. And depending on events coming up, if it's coming before a rain event or the fact that it's been super moist before, indicates that an early event should always be more beneficial. Switching to like a cereal, like a wheat or barley or oats, like a rust and tan spot. Traditionally, those are sprayed on the flag leaf. And seeing that infection come up and scouting to see if there's disease that you can see ahead of time. The one that you most times can't see or you can't see is the fusarium that gets blown in from the south. That one, there's disease models that do show the potential for it coming. Farmer's Edge has sensors like moisture probe sensors along the way that would indicate whether or not there's a greater chance of that coming in. And our weather stations that we have all over the country would definitely indicate that that's going to be a problem, especially that's the season that we unfortunately have now encountered with excessive rain events, that fusarium is probably going to be blowing in. Early flowering on fusarium type products is the best time to be spraying. As soon as you see those flowers, especially on the outside, usually on the outside headlands is where you'd start or wheel tracks, you'd start to be seeing flowering. That's the time to start hitting the plant.
Okay, well, we had a question come up here. Talking about timing and delays, do you think delays in planting will have an effect on the amount of fungicide used this year in the Northern Plains specifically?
Well, so obviously the date on the calendar is going to be much different than what we're used to. I guess that's going to be a decision that a grower is going to have to make. Sometimes a fungicide application is going to set back, and I'm not going to say setback, that's probably a bad word, but increase the days of being green and potentially pushing back the harvest. It depends on the fungicide, but there is that chance. And some people may not want to spray a fungicide if it's already going to be pushed into a super late seeding date. But at the same time, in the amount of moisture that we've had, the chances are unfortunate that diseases are going to be more prevalent this year. So I hope I answered that question without going around in a circle.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, George. So on the topic of VR fungicides, what would prompt a customer to do that? So why would a customer want to get into VR fungicide?
Yeah. One is obviously the cost savings that comes along with it, and just putting product where it's needed. In this area for sure, in low spots or surrounding sloughs and those beach areas, I'm going to say, where they used to have water and or potentially or hopefully dried up by the time fungicide hits, that those don't need either any or a reduced rate of a fungicide rate. So you're basically putting money to those areas that aren't necessarily warranting putting money on, with the risk that the added risk that we now have, especially with this year with higher everything, fertility prices and seed prices that are along the way, and commodity prices, that if we can sharpen the pencil, potentially it's going to be a savings and a benefit at the same time, that we're not skimping on the areas that are going to produce the crop, but potentially pulling back on the low areas or the hilltops that are potentially being burnt up there.
Great. So what would be the process if a customer wanted to get started in VR fungicides?
Yeah. So one would obviously being, showing the interest in talking to your Farmer's Edge representative or in the field. One is ensuring that the sprayer is capable of reading a variable rate map, and that it's unlocked. Some monitors are locked, meaning that you're going to have to pay a fee to whether that be to the dealer so they can get an unlock code, or it's going to need a potential tune-up just to make sure that it can read and output a VR map. So that's the first one. Once we got over that hurdle, is the next to start preparing. Give some time to your Farmer's Edge agronomist. We do have quite a few people that are enjoying this service right now, and so the more customers we get, we need some timing into that. At least a week's notice is ideal. Meaning that we have to have some information and stuff along the way and in place. We have to make sure that the timings hit on the specific crop. Making sure identify the fields and the goals of that application. Disease models in Farmer's Edge can help make that decision, looking at growth stage models and knowing the timing ahead of time to see when we could be hitting it. The next one is what's your specific goal? I have customers who say to me that they want a 25% reduction, based on the year. So we're going to have to tailor those maps along the way, and whether that's pulling back in like I said, the hilltops, those potential beach areas, or the drowned out areas that had excess moisture and the crop is struggling, or the very good areas, really depends on your rates. So we need to talk about which product is going to be utilized and what labeled rate there is, whether it's a 0 rate full rate, or a 0 half rate full rate, or a half rate full rate. It really depends. We can tailor them to how the customer would want them. At that point in time, Farmer's Edge agronomist would be making up the zone maps. We'd be making up, like I said, anywhere from a 2-zone map to a 3-zone map. We're trying to find the latest image, or the most recent image possible, so that we can make up that zone map with the differing rates, so that if you're, say, your full rate is 15 gallons, your half rate is 7.5 gallons, and your 0 rate's obviously 0 gallons. Some monitors don't like 0 rates, so we have to do a little bit of wizardry when it comes to our techs. They have certain things that they could be doing to make sure that those maps are appropriate and work on your monitor. Determining and kind of going over the rates once we've made up those maps with the grower, and kind of getting a check off that things are okay and they're well approved. We always like talking to the customer, getting that a final approval before they get in. Those maps get into the monitor and in the sprayer, so that we're both on the same page and communication has been well established. along the way. The last one, like I said, is we don't go off of we always use label rates. So let's make sure that things are on the up and up, and we're doing the right thing. So if there ever is a hiccup along the way, that we're doing always the right thing.
Perfect. Okay, we had another question come up here. Is it needed or required to have an automated weather station close to the field to apply VR fungicide?
No, not needed. Obviously, there's benefits to having a weather station close to the fields that are going to be sprayed. Obviously, for ahead of time and disease detection, and forecasting of the disease, but not necessary at all. In saying that, shoot, I forgot the number of how many weather stations we had across the prairies, but it's a lot. So we don't have a whole lot of holes in the prairies when it comes to capturing weather events. So I'm sure if a new customer would like to get signed on and see some of the the disease risk that's coming at them, we could probably help them with that.
Okay, so for existing customers, what service do they need to be on to utilize VR fungicide?
Yeah. So for an existing customer, the base one would be Smart, our Smart platform, which would be CanPlug's weather station imagery. VR fungicide is included into that service.
So how about new customers? Can a new customer sign up for VR fungicide as well?
Mm-hmm. If new customers are wanting to see this service, there is actually a promotion that we're having now that customers can sign up for free on a trial, and also be signed up with our Smart services for the season. So I'll kind of direct that if anybody is a new customer and wanting more information, to reach out either to myself or to any of your Farmers Edge representatives, and we could kind of show you this new program that we got going on.
Perfect. Okay, get to one more question in the chat here. It's going back a little bit. Do you use any sensors that record the inoculum for any potential threat? Is there anything that can do that?
The only one, I don't know about the threat, but I guess the instance of would be we have moisture sensors, moisture probes that go down to 44-inch, and I guess that one would be one that, if you're, say, in West Saskatchewan, where you've been having lesser moisture than what we in Manitoba have, seeing the gas tank of moisture in the soil, and if that moisture sensor concludes to you that there is moisture there, then it potentially is worthwhile to keep on and keeping that crop going and keep applying a fungicide application. But to answer your question, no, there's no sensors that would indicate that, other than good old ground truthing and scouting and getting on your hands and knees and getting absolutely soaked in a canola field and trying to look for those little itty bitty mushrooms and spores in the field.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, George. That's all the questions.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, I bet you have. Do you have any last comments? Because that's all we have for questions coming in through the chat right now.
I guess out of our suite of products that we have for Farmers Edge, this is that product that has been tested, and I've heard numerous comments from customers that it really took the stress off of their fungicide application. I had a friend actually who was doing what he believed was manual variable rate application of fungicide, where he had an on-off on his Raven in his sprayer and was pretty much shutting it on and off as he was going through low spots or dips or ditches, and to the point where actually wearing out the switch flipping on and off. This just takes the stress right out of that. And with VR Fungicide, that everything's programmed into there. We reviewed that map with the customer. They understand where those ditches are, or where that slough area is, that the crop just doesn't grow as much, and just puts the customer back into driving mode and going up and down the field and letting the Verberate fungicide map do the work for them. So the ease of use and the money that's saved along the way.
All right. Well, again, George, thank you very much for taking the time to do this with us today. That does wrap up today's presentation. So remember, all of you, to click that subscribe button and that bell icon so you are alerted to all our future live videos and any of our other video content. Again, George, thank you. And thank you all for joining us. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.